It's not every day that I have the pleasure of talking with someone who has accomplished so much. It's not every day whom it's not every day that I have the pleasure of sharing this virtual studio or virtual fireside, as you may, with someone who has their names in the Guinness Book of Records. It's not every day that I have the pleasure of sharing this unique platform with someone who has done extraordinary work and yet remains so simple, so humble. He doesn't come across with so much air that makes you feel uncomfortable, but yet he is a superstar in their own right. This day, I am so privileged to have with us Mr. Gary Friedman, who has done it all. I mean it, he has done it all. And if you're joining for the first time, you may be wondering, what's going on here? Hold on a second. This is the Story Warrior channel, a channel that features people with extraordinary stories. I call them unsung heroes with untold stories, particularly those who are climbing unusual mountains in search of telling or sharing a new narrative. I am so fortunate to have Mr. Gary Friedman in studio. Mr. Friedman, where you're joining us from today, if you don't mind, I am Gideon Fumukwai, as you may know, the story warrior, the guy who would not stop until he finds the most amazing people to tell fascinating stories about how their journey started. Where are you joining from?
I'm joining from Massachusetts, and thank you, Gideon, for that absolutely wonderful introduction.
Thank you so much. I know you are somewhere in Massachusetts. And if I'm right, you're in Plymouth. Is it Plymouth or is it Plymouth?
Plymouth, but
Plymouth.
it's,
See,
it's spelled differently depending on what era you're here from.
there you
Well,
go. I see pronounce every single word, every single syllable the way that I was taught. Plymouth, but you say it's Plymouth. Okay, Plymouth. That's a very historic place, a very historic city
it is.
close to Massachusetts. And are you staying there because there's so much history there, or are you staying there just because it's your place of choice?
That's a big question. Let me see if I can give you a reasonably sized answer.
Okay.
Um, the short answer is it's more reasonable than living in Boston,
Mm.
which is where we moved to. Okay, now I have to back up a little bit. I lived all my life in California. We had to leave California due to the pandemic. We moved to a small place in Boston because that was available. But
Mm.
I couldn't stand living in Boston. Driving there is insane. It's very crowded.
Yes.
It's very expensive, real estate
Yes.
wise. So
Yes.
we moved an hour south to Plymouth, where life is more reasonable,
Yes,
and
sir.
you're by the shore. And the history is nice, but it also means it's very crowded in the summertime. But that's okay. These are things that you live with.
Thank you so much. And believe it or not, I've been to Plymouth, and
Yay!
I saw some of the history. I've been around. I've been around. I've been everywhere. So that's my bragging right. When I came there, the only place, perhaps one of the few places that took me back to 17th century America. There's a place called Plymouth Plantation. I don't know if you've ever been there.
I have been there.
And yes, I ask questions to people who are working at the Plymouth Plantation. They do not answer me as in today, 21st century. All their answers were there were there were answers that were kind of like pre-scripted to 17th century America. They answered pre-colonial answers. They wore pre-colonial dresses or clothings. They carried very old rifles, and they were so stuck in the past. I thought, man, this is such an unusual place. I almost felt like I was talking to the Amish in Pennsylvania or something. but
Well,
I,
for the plantation, they hire actors to make you feel like you're in the. Now that's in the first half. In the
yes,
second half of Plymouth Plantation, you actually get to interact with modern day Native Americans. And
okay.
you can ask them any question. They are not actors, and they're not trying to pretend that they're from the past. So you get
Oh,
a nice view of both. And
yes.
yeah. We were there a few years ago, and it's an amazing place.
It was simply surreal to me. The conversations I had with them, I cannot forget. And I'm a guy that's fascinated about storytelling, and it lit up my fire, and it gave me a sense of nostalgia. I wish I lived in those times. Though, when you move further up to closer to the modern part of the city, there was, if I recall well, there was a monument there that juxtaposes what the new immigrants thought and what the Native Americans thought about the incoming of the Mayflower and all of that. And there was something that was really eye-opening there. They talked about, they didn't quite like July 4th. They didn't quite celebrate July 4th. They didn't think that it was such a big deal. They were kind of like, wait a minute, this what the vast majority of us think about as a celebration, for them is not so much a celebration. I don't know if you've seen that monument. And
You
this is,
talked about the Native Americans didn't care for U.S. Independence Day because that was the
yes,
day when their country was taken over officially.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. There's a monument to that effect there. But this is just that's not what we're going to talk about. I just thought, because you're in a place that is full of history, maybe we can start from there. But we can now evolve, if you're okay, and talk about more substantive things that can help our audiences, our people that are viewers. I know people are viewing these videos from my records, from what I'm seeing, from Asia, from Africa, from Middle East, and beyond. So I want to ask you, Mr. Friedman, do you mind to introduce yourself a little bit? I know you as an extraordinary photographer. I know you as someone who has traveled a fair bit. You teach at MIT. Uh, you have been an inventor, and you've done so many things. But in your own words, who is Mr. Friedman?
That's a difficult question to answer. I'll start by tweaking a few things to what you said. I am a frustrated inventor.
Oh,
When I was
frustrated.
younger, I used to invent lots of things and I'd build working prototypes. And anyway, none of those inventions ever made any money. In fact,
Hmm.
one of the reasons I left NASA, I used to work for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory for 10 years. I worked in the Voyager program and the Galileo program. Voyager is still out there and still working.
Mhm.
But I left after 10 years because I had a lot of patents I wanted to commercialize. One of
Mm.
which was I built and designed a digital camera. And if you
Mhm.
take a picture with this camera, you'll be able to prove in court that the image was not manipulated by computer. And I thought this invention was going to just save the world.
Mm.
And at the time, the world didn't care.
Hmm.
Oh well. Anyway, so I left there to go to learn how to run a business. I started several different businesses. One of which was with one person that you've already interviewed, Dr. Rossa.
Yes.
We were working on an online insurance company. Those were very exciting days.
Yes.
But just like anyway, all the things that I have invented, I never made any money from. I invented
Oh.
a digital guitar because I was watching. A few years ago, Guitar Hero was a really big deal among the
Yes.
kids, and I thought it was such a waste of energy that these kids would spend hours and hours practicing Guitar Hero, and all of that practice could not be applied to an actual guitar. There was
Mm.
it didn't even help you with the learning curve. So I decided to go the other way. Why don't you build a digital guitar that works just like Guitar Hero, except
Wow.
it allows you to actually play. So with Guitar Hero, you see a yellow color, you press the yellow button and you strum.
Mhm.
With mine, you look at the sheet music. You see a C minor chord, you press the
Mhm.
C minor button, and then you strum. And it's an instant rhythm guitar. You just press the chords that you need and you strum. I flew to China to have those made. I lost money there. Back in the days of SMS, when SMS and texting was brand new,
Yes.
I invented a keyboard originally for astronauts because if you're floating in space and trying to type on a keyboard, you're going to be pushing yourself and you're going to start floating away. So I invented a keyboard that could be held in the hand,
Mhm.
like an egg. And by pressing various combinations of buttons on this, you'll be able to type all letters, all numbers, all function keys, anything you can type on a keyboard, you can do this. But it was position independent, which means I can capture my thoughts while I was driving, while on a leisurely walk, while I was laying in bed at 2 a.m, and said to myself, "Oh wow, that's a great idea." And in fact, I built myself a prototype of this, and I used it at 3 a.m, and that's how I came up with the patent for the digital camera.
Wow.
Full circle. Anyway, that never went anywhere either. So yeah, I am I'm a frustrated inventor, but the fact that I was able to make all these prototypes and implement my ideas, That's what got me the job in the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Uh,
Mm,
Started out as a summer job and went on. I was so lucky to get a job like that
mm,
because they kind of have a shoestring budget, believe it or not.
mm-hmm.
Uh, but they were, some of the smartest data scientists are out there.
Yep.
The fact that you can communicate with a spacecraft that is, to quote Carl Sagan, billions and billions of miles away. I met
Yep.
him, by the way.
Yep.
Really smart guy. Um, yeah, and the further away you are, the lower the signal, the fainter the signal.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of what I would call snow. The kind of whenever your television is between channels, you get all this noise and
Mm-hmm.
snow. Well, that the signal is so faint compared to all that background noise. The
Yep.
fact that these guys can extract that signal from such a sea of noise is an engineering marvel. I
Wow.
also think the time of the Deep Space Network, where they have these giant dish parabolic antennas all pointing to the spacecraft that are all out there. And this was all technology from the 1950s, and I was
Wow.
part of a team that was designed to try to bring it into the modern world.
Hmm.
Anyway, best job that any engineering student could ever hope to have. Where was I going with all this?
You are giving a little background to some of the fascinating things you've done, which
Oh,
I
okay.
think you are like, let's put it in perspective. For all what you've done, you're like one in a million kind of category, and that's very, very rare. I've had one in 1,000 people. I've had one in 2,000. I've had one in 10,000 people. But what you're saying, Gary, you have really touched on things that have changed the way the world is evolving. Whether they give you enough credit or not, I can see it, I can smell it, I can feel it. And let's talk about Dr. Mr. Dr. Lawson, because he's the one that first mentioned you to me. I said to him, uh, you are you have done some things that are so cool that very few people have been fortunate enough to know about. Who are some of the people in your circle that you think I may talk to? That's how I got lucky. If I didn't ask, I would not have known about you. And he was so gracious, he was so kind to say, wait a minute, I got them. And he gave me a couple of names. And I'm so glad you could make the time. You and I have played phone tag, a bit of phone tag, so to speak, for a couple of months. I was praying and hoping that you can find the time you were traveling. And then when you ended your travel, I was also on the road. Not that I'm in any in any way close to what you're doing, but you are so kind to have accepted. And you said, let's do this because this is an unscripted program. It's a conversation in which I'll be asking some questions about you. Um, I'm not sure what the DR said to you that made you to say yes to this random guy from Africa with a weird name and a very goofy accent.
Well, he told you about the story warriors and what a great concept it was to be able to,
Oh,
we're interviewing good people. But the one in a million thing, I sure don't feel that way. It's not because of anything I've done. I've just been really, really lucky.
hmm.
And then there was a point about, I was talking about how I left to go try to learn how to run a business so I could commercialize our patents.
Yes,
I started a business. It was an IT consulting firm.
I
And
see.
I grew it from one person, that was me, and a telephone, to about 22 employees and $10 million a year in revenue. Uh,
Wow.
that was after year three. After year five, it crashed and burned, which is
Uh oh.
what happens with a lot of businesses. Uh,
Yes.
anyway, long story short, I gave up on that path. I wasn't
Oh.
going to be able to commercialize my patents. I wasn't able to get investor funding. I blew
Mhm.
through. Well, I won't talk about that. I completely gave up. I gave up and I went to China and I taught English for a semester because
Mm.
that's what you do when you give up.
Well. I don't think the students you thought would would think about it that way. But let me put it this way: isn't there a lot of serendipity that some of these things that you did, you thought they were not successful, you ended up at the Jet Propulsion Lab, which is a place of dreams for anyone in engineering. But
Yes.
it certainly is powerful. But I also want to point this out: some of the people that tune in here and listen and watch are mostly business people, business-minded people. I'm a business-minded guy. I don't know how successful I am, but I believe in working for myself. I don't cherish so much working for anyone else because I truly believe if you want to be successful, do your own thing and let the universe, let God bless you. If you work for
Yeah.
someone else, God will bless them. and you wouldn't know because you are a yes person. But if you really work for yourself, whether I crash and burn, whether I suffer the slings and arrows of human existence, at some point, I'll see a breakthrough. And I've seen that. So you may call it crash and burn, but truly you have 22 or more people that came to learn from someone like you. And that's something to honor in itself. Don't you think so?
There's a lot of wisdom in what you said. Are you familiar with Deepak Chopra?
Yes, I've read some of his work.
He's spot on in so many ways, and in all of mythology, everyone tells you your goal in life should be to try absolutely everything and
Yes.
find out what your gifts are.
Yep.
And if there's a demand for your gift, and it turns out you're good at it, you will succeed.
Yes.
And another thing I learned after running my own business, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is that you have to do the work today in order for the money to come in tomorrow.
Yes.
It's like every day you're a farmer. Every day you have to sow your seeds. Otherwise,
Yes.
it's not going to happen.
Yes.
Now, this is both good and bad. If you work for yourself,
Yes.
that means you're always working for yourself.
Yes. But
my wife's biggest complaint is I'm always working because I have to make sure.
But there's a fire within that you cannot quench. I came back from a 6 weeks on the road with my wife. We're basically sowing season. Like you say, you're like a farmer. You're always sowing. We're out in multiple states sowing seeds. We've not had any returns on investment yet. We're training some team members. We have a financial services business, financial literacy business. Some part of it is insurance, some part of it is annuity, some part of it is retirement, some part of it is getting children to go to school without you having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the point we were on this road for 6 weeks was so that we could meet people where they are and encourage them from where they are to be where they want to go. And so it was all about sowing and sowing and sowing and sowing. And we come back, we don't have any returns on investment, but we're very satisfied. We're always working, sometimes late in the night, 1 a.m.,
Yeah.
2 a.m.
Yeah.
But we're very, very satisfied that we're doing meaningful work. So I want to talk about the power of doing meaningful work. Of all the things that you have done, I know you've even raised 2 young boys who were fatherless, if I may use that word.
I was in the Big Brothers program for 25 years.
There you go. Talk to us about that because that's meaningful work. Whether we acknowledge it, whether the world acknowledges it, it's excruciating work, but it's gonna help them someday. Talk to us about raising 2 young boys.
There has been a program in the U.S., and I believe it's other countries as well. It's called Big Brothers / Big Sisters. I think they're called mentors now.
Yes.
Where you, if you have a situation where there's a fatherless boy, you pair them up with somebody just to spend time with, quality time with. Yes. Because young boys and young girls need role models when they're growing up, and if it doesn't exist in the household, you will develop a much better character person if you are paired with somebody and you spend time with them. The first child that I worked with was recommended by the rabbi in our temple. He said, "This is a child who's troubled," and he was. And the self-esteem was very, very low. His father had died. His mother had leukemia and was in and out of the hospitals all the time. And so now it's hard to know. It's hard to know what kind of an impact you have. But he and I spent a lot of time together. We just be doing fun things. Sometimes take him to the circus. Sometimes we go out and play baseball because he loved baseball.
Wow.
Sometimes we'll just go out and hike. Just doing nothing in particular other than just spending time together.
Yes, sir.
I gave him a camera once. Here's how to develop film because I had a darkroom at the time. Things like that. So I spent many years with him. He finally had to move to the East Coast because that's where his mother went. So then I adopted somebody else after that. But before I talk about him, the first child and I reunited after many, many years, about 2 years ago. Because he lives in the East Coast now, so do I. Wow. He's now an adult. He's taller than me. He's got a kid. He was married. He's kind of a troubled adult still, but he did let me know what a great impact I had and my time and attention had. Because it's like wow, somebody, why is this guy interested in me? So that was, I was crying during the whole meeting. It was very emotional. Uh,
Wow.
the
Wow.
second child I worked with was what do I say? He also similar situation. No father in the picture. I spent probably 10 years with him,
Hmm.
uh, and now he got married recently, and I was his best man.
Oh, the best man, not the best dad.
And he has a child now, and I am now honorary grandfather. So now I
Woo.
have officially 5.5 grandchildren.
There you
But
go.
during his wedding, I was standing up and addressing the audience. Here's how I know this person. And here's the
Wow.
thing we did. And afterward, he whispered to me, "Those were the best years of my life." It really, that's how he looked back on
Look at
it. And
that.
again, another occasion for crying. So
Yes.
you never know the kind of impact you're going to have, but just time and attention are the
Yes.
greatest gifts you can give to anybody.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. And the world famous Steve Jobs once said, "You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. But you have to trust that somehow the dots will connect." So
Yes.
this is abundantly true that the fact that the dots are connecting now is it's not because when you took over the job of being a big brother to them or a father to them, you did not know how they're going to turn out. You just did
No.
good work. You just did all your best. You have to trust that tomorrow is going to look better. So we're grateful that they are turning back and they're really acknowledging you for this. But let's flip the page a little bit. Before you became a successful adult doing all these kinds of very interesting and fascinating work that you did, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Encino, California, which is
Okay.
internationally known as the home of the Valley Girl.
Okay. Home of a Valley Girl. I
The
never
Valley
heard it.
Girl. Would you like some proof?
Yes, sir.
Oh my
I've never heard that one before.
Frank Zappa's daughter made that famous. And there
Oh,
really were people in Encino who spoke like that.
I
And
see.
anyway, it wasn't a positive thing, but that's where people know Encino. It's in the
I
San
see.
Fernando Valley, Southern California, and I
Oh,
pretty much spent most of my life in California up until the pandemic. But
wow.
I went to public school and just there's nothing extraordinary there.
Uh-huh.
I didn't do any sports. I was mostly playing with electronics when I was a kid. This is before
Oh,
this is before computers, so I would go to Radio Shack and
yes.
buy the kits where you can put the electronic parts together. I was using a
Oh,
soldering iron years before any
yes.
parent today would let them hold something.
Yep. Wow. So you develop an interest in electronics at school. It's
Yes.
not like something that came from genetically from your dad, from your mom, but
Well,
you just went out there and said, "You know what? I like to fiddle around with these things."
I would say that's partially true. My father was an engineer also. He
Okay.
eventually he became vice president of Northrop Corporation. But
Okay.
before then, he was a brilliant engineer. He
Hmm.
was one of the major designers of the B 2 bomber. And he worked on many
Mm.
other programs, which we can't talk about now
Yeah, yeah,
because
no, that's
we get off.
prohibited stuff. Let's not talk about prohibited stuff. We don't want to get ourselves into trouble.
But I do have an artifact right over here, which might interest you. Hold on just a second.
Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Well, Gary's away. If I had my way, I would do you a little song with my harmonica.
Oh,
Well,
harmonica.
let me see. Okay, Gary's back. I'm not gonna mess around with my harmonica. I'll just wait for him to come on.
Well,
Okay,
okay, while I'm waiting for you, I'm going to play a little bit on my Zaphoon here.
there you go. That would be something.
This is it's called a Zaphoon. It looks like a recorder, but it
Wow.
has a tenor saxophone reed. So it
No
sounds
kidding. No
like
kidding.
it sounds 2 octaves lower than it should, and it's like a cross between a saxophone and a clarinet. Let me
I
see what.
wish. Where can I get something like that?
I loved it. It
Oh my goodness. I love
Always
wind.
in my
I
car
love wind
bag.
instruments so much.
If you ever want to make a connection, like while you're traveling anywhere in the world,
Hmm.
you don't speak the language. You
Hmm.
sit down on a street corner and you start to play this, and
There you
suddenly
go.
you make eye contact with people. Suddenly you can bring a smile to somebody else's face. This is
I
how
love.
you. This is
I love
how
that.
you make an impact. Yeah.
Love that. Love that. Love that. I have to check in with you on how to get to acquire mine. Do you know why? Everywhere I go, I carry my harmonica because it also allows me to connect with children, and
Same
it
thing.
gives me. It's my superpower without a doubt. If I'm having a bad day, I play this, I relieve myself. If I see a child crying, I play this, they stop crying. So there's no better way to fascinate people. So you have to tell me, Gary, how I can get acquire one of those so that I can also be as fascinating as you.
Go to this website, XAPHOON, Zafoon.com, but it's spelled with an X.
Okay, zafone.com. Okay. I
Yeah.
would definitely go get it because I want to have as many tools of fascination at my disposal as possible.
Oh,
Zafone.
this is what I went to go get. This is the shoe phone I built back
What?
in 1980. It
Mhm.
was at the time. This made the Guinness Book of World Records as being the
Mm.
world's smallest telephone. Uh,
Yes.
now this is
Shoe.
before cell phones. This is before cordless phones.
Yes, sir.
Back when telephones were big and bulky, and I was bored when I was in college. Okay, so what I did was I decided to give myself a challenge. Nike running shoes were known for being having the thinnest sole. So anybody can build a telephone, right? But I wanted to
Yes.
make sure it was as thin as possible. So this is what it was, and when I'm out in the field, it would be covered like this. So
Yes.
uh,
Wow.
put this off, and this shoe would have the tools that you need to hook it up. Because again, this is before cordless phones. This is before cell
Yes.
phones. So these are all the tools that a telephone repair person would have on his tool belt:
Yes.
screwdrivers, wire clippers, alligator clips, things like that.
No
Um,
kidding.
this was actually encased in plastic once I got it to work.
I see.
So that way you can run on it and there's no damage. But the sound quality is very good. You can dial 16 digit touch tone pad instead of only 12. They've got other switches here, so you can go into a monitor mode where you can listen in and nobody knows that you're listening in. There's an LED here that shows you green if you got it hooked up correctly, or red if it's backwards. And if it rings, there's a 90-volt neon light, so it'll just flash whenever the
Yeah.
phone's ringing.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness. That is, you're blowing my mind away. Tell me, didn't the FBI try to adopt this so they can give this to all their spies going around the world? Just wear them. People think you're wearing shoes. They don't know that you're connected to the headquarters of.
The answer is no.
Okay. Well, I think if I were working for them, I would have come for you. Absolutely begging, so that because it's the most innocuous way for you to get out there and still converse without letting anybody know that you have some extra communication devices on you. Don't you think
Right,
so?
right. Yeah, nobody knew unless I was at the airport.
They didn't get a memo. It's so sad they did not get a memo. Oh my goodness, they did not do their homework. But tell me, who could you call with this kind of phone, shoe phone?
Anybody, because what you do is you take the alligator clips from this and you hook it up to maybe the side of your house where the telephone wires are coming in,
Hmm.
and then you can just dial it anybody at all because those,
Okay.
those are the numbers.
So my question is, did you have to carry this in your pocket, or they could be in your shoes and you still be able to make the dial?
Always in my shoe. I would have to take the shoes off,
Okay,
and
when you want to dial.
when you want to dial, what you do is you'd take one of these out,
I
and this
see.
is a modular cord, and you can
Wow.
plug it. There's a modular plug right over here, so you plug the cord
Yes.
in here, and
Yes.
then you can take the other end, plug it into your wall outlet, and you
Uh,
can make a
and you
phone
can make a
call.
call. Oh my goodness, that is so cool. Did astronauts try to get this to go to space, or they also did not get a memo?
Astronauts do not need this in space; they use radio, and that's a whole other topic.
Okay. Okay. Wow. 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 This is so cool. I can't even imagine how lucky I am to have experienced this, to see this live, because I've heard about it but never seen it. So The viewers of the Story Warrior channel, you guys are the luckiest of the breed because not many channels have had the fortune of seeing this. Do you share this often with other people, or this is?
Oh,
Oh my goodness! Thank you.
over there, we got. This is where the grandkids hang out in this portion, and I got a whole technology museum over there. My
Yes.
grandmother's mechanical adding machine is there.
Yeah.
My father-in-law's paymaster is over there. The first oscilloscope I ever bought with my JPL paycheck, that's over there. But these are all old things.
Wow. Where did
So,
your tell me where did your interest in electronics come from? Is it inborn? Is it
I
something you
believe
ate in your mom's kitchen?
my father spent a lot of time teaching me the basics of electronics when I was very young. You know,
Okay.
here's a battery, here's a motor, or here's a light. Everything has to go in a circle and all that. He just
Mm.
taught me the basics, and then I just started to fool around with things on my own.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until I won an electronic design competition in college when I won the first prize was a Hewlett Packard 41C calculator.
Hmm.
Ooh, this is the best calculator in the world. You not only could do numbers, but it could also store letters. And it could remember your programs after you turn it off. Now,
Yes.
nobody uses calculators anymore, but this was the best in the world. Plus, the calculator had little, what they call input-output ports in the back. You could
Yes.
hook the calculator up to your own electronic devices and have the calculator control things, turn them on and
Wow.
off. And
Wow.
with this calculator, I did everything with it. I turned it into a telephone answering machine, and you could talk to it using a push button phone, and it would talk to you using speech synthesis, like the
Hmm.
same kind of synthesizer that um, oh god, I just blanked on the name.
That's cool. That's
The
okay.
famous physicist who was in a wheelchair, Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking,
Same,
yeah, the British guy, right?
yes, British guy. Um, was he British? I don't know.
Yes, I think he was British, if I'm not wrong.
It was the same speech synthesizer that he used.
Okay.
I used it to turn things on and off. I would have it in my camera bag. I would hook
Okay.
up to my camera, and it would take time exposures at night. Because back in the days of film, you never knew how long to keep the shutter open for long exposures. So the calculator would try different values. And then back at home, after you got your film developed, you pick the best one and throw the other ones away. Um, I did other things. I wrote a whole book on things you can do with your Hewlett Packard calculators.
Oh my goodness.
12 chapters. One of the most ambitious was a slide projector dissolve unit, which nobody who living in today would ever know what it was. But back before things went digital,
Yeah.
back before when you wanted to give a presentation, you would have a slide projector.
Yes.
If you wanted to really tell a story, you would have two slide projectors, and one would fade on while the other one faded off, and it made for a very engaging visual presentation. So
Yeah.
I designed and programmed my own slide projector dissolve unit using one of these Hewlett Packard calculators, and it was designed to meet my unique needs. And I
Oh my
used
goodness.
that to tell a story. Um, Back when I was still at JPL, and this was a very risky thing, I was a photographer for a cultural exchange between Soviet and American high school students. Now, this
Mm.
is the height of the whole Cold War, right?
Mhm.
Gorbachev was still in power.
Yep.
But we still had nuclear weapons. Well, we still have
We
that.
still have them, but they were literally overhead at that time. They were like, "I'm gonna blow this. I'm gonna blow this. I'm gonna blow." Like, no, please don't blow. Don't. Now they're probably back in their shelves. Nobody's threatening to.
Hopefully that's true. But at the time, there was a real worry about nuclear war, especially with the youth from both sides.
Mhm.
So this program was called Peace Child, and it was their mission to foster communication between the two sides.
Mm.
There was an old adage where uh, tribal communities in the Amazon that were at war with each other, they would exchange children at birth.
Mhm.
That's to make sure that one tribe wouldn't commit war with the other tribe.
Exactly. Exactly.
One over there. So that was kind of the same thing. So they got high school students from the Soviet Union and America. They met in the Soviet Union. They put on a play that dealt with historic tensions between the two countries. Now you know what theater does to its participants. You know, it's, everybody gets really, really close.
Yes.
After the 1 month tour, they toured all through Latvia at the time. They brought their message of peace to people of the Soviet Union,
Mhm.
and the kids became such intense friends. And
Wow.
even to this day, some of them still communicate with each other. But the idea was, you know, one day some of these kids might grow up, they might become a politician, and
Yep.
they get themselves, I don't
Yep.
want to make war with my friends.
Yes. And,
And this,
and
go ahead.
that was a powerful idea. I wish we could still do it today.
They did it like 22 times in different areas of the U.S. and
Mhm.
different areas of the Soviet Union, and this went
Yes.
on for several years. And there are Facebook groups with the participants, and they still talk
Wow.
to each other. It was still a remarkable thing. So I told the story. I was there. I was an embedded photographer,
Mm.
and so 150 rolls of film, and I just shot like crazy. And I came back and I put this slideshow together
Hmm.
with synchronized music, and it really told the story. And audiences in the U.S. would cry because I told the story. Here's what happened in the Soviet Union, and wow, what a worthwhile program. You can see that show. It's online on my website, among many, many other things. If you go to friedmanarchives.com, most of my photographic work is there. And that's kind of what I'm doing for a living now. I'm licensing my images to book and magazine editors around the world because
Wow.
I have traveled quite a bit. So I have licensable images. So it's a
Mm.
stock photography website.
Wow. That is unbelievable. I did not know that part. You're connecting the dot from the Amazon jungle to Cold War US Russia relations and
Well,
the
everything's
fact,
connected.
yes, I did not know that. But let's dive in a little bit here with respect to you going to the Jet Propulsion Lab. So you did not go in initially as an inventor or somebody who is able to create uh, technical objects, but more as a photographer. Is that what you're saying?
No, no, no. The photography happened much, much later. After I gave up trying to start my own business, and after I
Mhm.
went to China to go teach English, I came back and I said, okay, well, now what do I do? And I decided that no matter what I did next, I didn't want to have to rely on anybody else to do their job,
Thank you. Say that again. You do not have to rely on someone else to do what?
to do their job properly. Now
Okay.
remember, my previous business was an IT consulting firm. I grew that had 22 employees,
Yeah.
millions of dollars in revenue, but every day was a headache. And those 5 years took 10 years off of my life in terms of stress because
Yes.
your success depends on other people doing their job and being
Yeah.
reliable and being competent.
Yep.
And enough of that. Apparently, I'm not a great manager.
No,
Uh,
but it also brings up another issue, which is there's some people that are really good at creating, inventing, and there's some that are good at managing, and there's some
yeah.
that are good at selling. So it doesn't discount the fact that you have been and you still are an inventor at heart. So look at the likes of Tesla and his business partner. Look at the likes of Jobs, Wozniak, and all the rest. They have there's always an inventor. There's always one who's a this good manager. There's one that's a good salesperson, and
Yes.
it's
Yes.
something that I want people that are watching to be mindful that you don't have to be good at everything. You have to be good at one thing. You're so good at it, like the hedgehog. You don't have to be a fox who knows everything about knows something about everything, but you can bring in someone else who has a different core skill to manage what you're designing. What do you think about that?
You need to bring in somebody else because
Yes.
although you bring up jobs, you bring up all these other exceptions to the rule.
Yes.
There are so many people who invent something and they start a company and the company fails because
Yes.
they're good at inventing, but they don't understand how to run a company. They don't
Yes.
understand the HR needs and all that. And
Exactly.
you cannot do it by yourself, despite these other exceptional people that you mentioned.
Yes.
And don't let pride prevent you from bringing on board the kind of talent you need to grow the business.
Yep. Pride should not be in the way. Remember, pride. Uh, it's a stumbling block. But if you take it out of the way and let other people who have stronger abilities in managing it, and you get out of the way, they can actually do it really well for you, because in that case, if they win, you win. But if you keep pride in the way, you may end up losing and everybody loses. And the person that will suffer the most is you, because it's your invention, it's your baby, it's your
It's your
idea,
company.
it's your
You,
company.
you sound like you have some experience in this area.
I have failed enough also in a number of things. So I have a little bit of experience, but probably not as much as you. My first business, I think, was selling newspapers while I was at college.
Uh,
Also sold condoms. I succeeded with the condom business, but I didn't succeed very well with, with the newspaper business. And the reason I succeeded with the condom,
business is recession proof, isn't it?
the condom, thank you, the condom business was recession proof. And I went to school in Cameroon. I was on the Mount Cameroon. I collected the condoms from school, and students would buy a lot of them. But those that they could not buy, I went into the ordinary markets and I sold them because it's recession proof. So I succeeded. But when I sold newspapers, I thought information. People should care a lot about information, but a lot of people don't care a lot of information at their own detriment. At their own detriment, to be very precise. But what I'm hearing from you is, for those who are business owners who are here, if you can create it, you don't have to necessarily be the one that manages it. Are
Right.
there any 2 or 3 lessons that you can give to people who are very good at managing, but not very good at creating?
Oh, well, you have to make sure you seek out somebody who can create,
There you
who
go.
has a small ego.
Yes. Oh,
That will tear the company apart. But go and network and mingle and look for ideas that you think are really good and that meets a need.
mm,
Um, Meets a need that already exists.
okay.
You cannot go about your business by saying, "Hey, I've identified a problem. Nobody else understands that this is a problem yet, but
Mhm.
here's the solution. Let's
Mm,
start a company." If people don't recognize that there's a problem, you've lost the race.
I see.
And this is, as an engineer, I had a lot of different inventions where exactly that. I
Mhm.
identified the problem. Nobody else saw that there was a problem. My astronaut keyboard, for example, I
Yeah.
saw it could reply to SMS, but nobody else saw it as a problem. My digital camera, whose output could be authenticated, nobody else thought that it was a problem. Hey,
Oh my goodness.
yes, go back to the 1920s and the Soviet Union. They were doctoring pictures left and right. It's not a new problem.
Yeah.
So, the one I really got angry at the time, and of course I've mellowed out since then. But I showed this digital camera to a lawyer friend of mine, and he wasn't impressed at all.
Hmm.
I was telling him, "Isn't this great? You'll be able to prove in court that nobody photoshopped this,
Yes.
because you can go back to the days where the photograph doesn't lie. It's
Yes.
true." He
Yep.
wasn't impressed. He said, "Hey, if we ever want to challenge the authenticity of an image, we hire our own photographer and we'll take our own pictures from our point of view and we'll submit that to the judge."
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. That is not a smart lawyer, I can tell. Like, who could I, I would have seen the value in that. I would absolutely have seen the value in that, but I'm gonna just leave lawyers out because they got their own mind. But let me check
No,
here
no,
with you.
I want to correct you there. Something else I realized, having grown up, lawyers have saved civilization quite a bit.
Really?
But right now,
Like Abraham Lincoln, who saved a nation.
I think that's a good analogy. But in a more current area, you've been reading a lot about artificial intelligence.
Yes.
A phrase I hate because there's nothing intelligent about it. It's just machine learning. But
Yes.
oh God, where was I going with this?
You're correcting me about the fact that lawyers have
Lawyers. Okay.
saved the world a few times.
In the world of drones, when drones first came out, they were a
Yes.
public nuisance and they were an instrument for terrorism. Bad
Yeah.
things could have happened. It took the lawyers about 10 years to catch up in terms of laws. Now you have to have drones registered and they have to have a shut-off valve. The lawyers came in and saved us from this.
Mm.
Currently, AI is our biggest threat, not in the way that you think. It's denying people healthcare benefits. It's denying people
Yes.
admission to universities.
Yes, sir.
All sorts of things. And there's no way for a person who's been wrongly denied a service or a benefit. There's no way for them to fight back. So here's where the lawyers are going to come in and save us. The engineers invented it. It's the incompetent managers who deploy it improperly,
Yeah.
saying, "Wow, look at all this shiny AI stuff. Look at all the people we don't have to hire. Look at all the money that we're saving." So we'll do that. If the lawyers are going to come and save us and sue their asses into accountability.
Okay, okay, I see where you're going with that. Now, where have they been? They seem to have vacated. What are they doing about AI? So far, everybody's is running helter skelter. Nothing is happening yet. Where have these lawyers been?
It is happening. It is happening in the background. You don't
Okay,
realize, you don't read about it in the headlines,
okay.
but there are lawsuits, even with the ACLU. They're starting to do things.
Mm,
People's lives are being ruined by this technology, and
yes.
now, even at the congressional level, they're starting to have laws regarding what AI can and cannot do, and
Mm,
how the output is going to be labeled, so you can be able to tell, because
mhm.
you can't tell what's true or not anymore. So this is
Okay.
going to the society is going to crumble even faster than it was before with all these
Hmm.
new techniques.
I
So
I agree with you. Except I have to say the lawyers, they always come to the job, they tardy to the job. They're waiting for us to start suing each other, get angry before they arrive. I wish they could arrive in time and say, okay, we're the smartest ones. Here's how you should go. Don't go, don't go astray. But they're waiting too late. People are already losing income, like photographers. I mean, you have a great interest in photography. I know the little guys that invent their own songs or compose their own songs, they may be losing some revenue. Where are the lawyers today? I know it's a debatable question, but what I want to check in with you here is, do you think that the artists will be protected by the coming of AI? You've been an inventor, you've been at the forefront of all these major inventions. Do you think that the laws will come and protect the little guy, because the little guy doesn't have a powerful machinery or lobbies that will go to Congress and move things their own way?
it will always take about a decade for the law to catch up. And in the
Hmm.
case of individual creators, whatever they do in 10 years will probably not be enough to save their jobs.
Hmm.
And I point to old fashioned jobs that nobody has anymore, like being a file clerk or
Yeah,
being a milkman
yeah.
or being the guy who throws a rock at your window in the UK in the 1800s to wake people up for their morning jobs. Those jobs don't exist anymore. Uh,
Or the
and
clock.
by the clock, even before AI came around, the music industry had changed to the point where you can't sign an artist and get rich. The only way that musicians are making money now is by playing to a full concert hall, and that
Mm.
doesn't happen as much. So that has already begun to change. And now, instead of AI coming along and cleaning our toilets and doing what's the word?
The dirty work.
Yeah, the dirty work. Instead of doing that, they're coming after our creativity. They're
Yes.
writing songs now. They're generating images now.
Yeah.
And I wrote a blog post about this, saying that people who are worried about this are worried about the wrong thing. And in this blog post, I talked about how it's ruining people's lives and all the examples I just gave. Photographers will still be in demand, but not as much. Just like with cell phones.
Mm. Wow.
Who
Wow.
needs a wedding? Who needs a wedding photographer anymore? Because people have you ever been to a wedding and the official wedding photographer is posing, and then all the guests are taking their cell phones and putting it over the photographer's shoulder, taking exactly the same picture, and it has just as much meaning for them. It's like,
Mm.
where's the value in the wedding photographer? It's going away now.
Mm.
So that's been going away for a while. Uh,
Wow.
Stock photography that hasn't gone very well either. And in the graphic arts in the 1980s, when the Apple Macintosh came out and the
Yep.
laser writer, lots of people in the graphic arts world lost their jobs because it suddenly became easy to do these things for normal people. Not You don't have to have a special skill. So technology coming in and changing the employment landscape is not a new thing. It will continue. Uh, yes, it's true that musicians, photographers, digital artists, they will all have their revenue streams shifting.
Mm.
There won't be in as much demand anymore. But on the flip side, art directors now have new tools available to them. I
Mm-hmm.
had this idea. It always starts out with the idea. And now we have new tools for being able to make it become a reality. In
Okay.
the old days, the tools were a camera and special lighting, and
Yeah.
maybe you hire an artist. And now a new tool is you have these AI things that can
The
throw
desktop.
set together.
Wow. That is interesting. So what you're saying is those who are creators should not be very worried. They should instead try to find new ways to harness their skill. Uh, is that what you're saying? And if
Go
so,
for it. Yes. In
okay.
other words, learn how to use these AI tools. So you can take the idea that you had, amplify it, have it created much faster, and using a different medium.
Okay. Are you worried about your photography though? Because you have a lot of photography. And help tell our audience, our viewers, how many countries you've been to, what kind of photos do you typically take, and do you have any worry about all the depth and the volume of work that you've combined or compiled as a photographer?
That's a really good question. Let me start at the beginning. What kind of photographs do I take? Or how many countries have I been to? I've lost count. I don't know. However, if you go to my stock photography website,
Mhm.
every single picture you go to there is a different country or a different topic. And
Wow.
the breadth of what I've done is there. If you click on one of those images, you can see more images in that subcategory.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, what was the
Hmm.
other question you answered?
The other one is, do you have any worry about your photos? Do you think that people or AI might scrub through your photos and use them
Yes,
okay, so you have the worry that other artists have.
I
What
have the
can
same
we
word.
I
Was
see. What can
what
we
am I doing?
do?
What am I doing about it? Nothing, because the value for stock photography has dropped considerably. Um,
Wow.
and I'm no longer earning a living because of that. It's there
Mm.
as a showcase. And what I'm doing now is I'm selling books on particular cameras.
Mm.
Let's see here.
Okay, so you, other than just being a photographer, you've also written a lot of books, right?
The
So
more the more recent cameras, the more complex they are. This is a book I wrote on how to use the Sony Alpha 7 R5. This is their full frame mirrorless cameras. They're getting ridiculously complex. If you buy it, you look at the manufacturer's manual, you can't understand it.
I don't
So
understand any of that. So I definitely need to come to you. Like, when was that published? And how much time do you need to spend in your own laboratory learning about that camera and then writing such a voluminous book? Because that looks like it's thicker than the Holy Bible. It's probably thicker than the Torah. It's thicker than the American tax code. How much time do you how much time do you have to invest in writing that? That's scary. I've
uh,
written two books. None of them is within one quarter of that.
I've written 45 books. You can see some of
Ah,
them behind me. This
45
one,
books. Do you
it,
sleep? Do you
it,
sleep, Gary? Do you
I
sleep?
don't. I don't. Just you and I were talking earlier. I'm always working and up until 1 or 2 in the morning. However, I'm well positioned to do this because of my technical background. I
Mm,
understand how these things work. I understand how to figure it out, and I
yes.
understand how to explain things. So
Oh,
I have a worldwide reputation now. If you buy a Sony camera, go get my books. They're not the cheapest, but they're certainly the most thorough. Well, thank you.
thank
So
you. Where can we get some of your books, Gary? Because, like you said, you have books on specific cameras, which may
yes,
be completely confounding to novices like me. I barely, if there are 10 or 15 functions in a camera, all I know is to shoot, click, that's it.
and
So there are
and
many people out there like me. So
make sure you put on auto and then take the picture. Then
there you go. So where can we get some of these books? Because there may be people that are more interested in some of your books.
if you have, you can go to friedmanarchives.com. FR
Friedmanarchives.com. Okay, thank you.
Friedman is spelled like you see the Friedman there. FRIEDMAN
Mhm.
archive. ARCHIV is in Victor ES.com. If you
Archives.
have a mirrorless camera from Sony or Fujifilm or Olympus, you'll find a book on the most popular bodies there. And you can
Mm.
download them as a PDF file instantly, and
Mhm.
also have the versions for your Kindle or your other e-readers. And printed versions are also available in both color and black and white. So there's an awful lot of choices there.
Wow. How much do they cost? They're very expensive. Should we be worried to come to that website, or are we going to see the price? We're going to collapse and fall over because, oh my God, Gary put so much time into this. It's so expensive.
It's a world's best value. It's a $34.95 US dollars, which is for a book. People are not used to paying that price.
No.
However, 800 plus pages. It's certainly worth it. The value in there is quite considerable. And nowhere else on the planet are you going to find anything that thorough and
Yes.
that clear and geared just for your specific camera.
800 and something pages. That brings up the question again. When do you sleep? But I'm going to leave that question to rest for the moment. Now, Gary, tell me, do
I
you?
should also mention the book I'm holding was the Spanish translation. So
Wow.
some are available in multiple languages too. Sorry,
Okay.
I had to use that in.
Where have you seen more success? And this is gonna hopefully help somebody. Is it in writing books? Is it in photography? Is it as an inventor? Or is it as a businessman?
Oh, another really good question. At a high level, you have to learn how to run a business. You have to. Even if you're a sole proprietor, even if you just work for yourself,
Yes.
that is the overarching skill you need.
Yes.
Because if you write books, you still have to know how to market them. You still have to understand. You have to do things and do the advertising and make
Mhm.
sure that you're not losing any money. So
Yes.
the business skill is something I wish they would teach in engineering class. That
Kind
is
of.
overall.
Yeah.
Uh, but as far as other things I've done, I've never made any money from my inventions. So all those lies they told you in kindergarten about, you build a better mousetrap and the world will
Yeah.
be the happier. No, no,
Oh,
that is a
I
lie. It's like Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy. It doesn't work that way.
oh my God. This is it. It makes my heart ache because I wish I grew up at a time when your inventions such as the guitar, the guitar, the instant guitar. If I were
Yeah.
familiar with that, instead of using a Guitar Hero, if I were familiar about your shoe phone, those are things that I would have wanted to take them and run with it.
Well,
Ah,
the shoe phone has no commercial applications whatsoever. I was just bored. That's
hmm,
different. But there are other things. I was talking about the Hewlett Packard calculators again. One of
mhm,
the things I built was a ultrasonic tape measure, where you can measure distances by bouncing sound off of it and timing how long for the sound pulse to bounce back.
yes,
That was commercialized by somebody else once upon a time.
okay. But
Um,
I could see people in geophysics using that to see how deep a sound. That if you can reach the bottom of the ocean, you can use sound to detect how far a lost ship, a lost missing vessel. Coming from firefighting, it could be helpful to me in some ways.
Fishermen also use that technique for
There
finding
you
where all the
go.
fish are because they're
Where are all
looking
the
for
fishes? Where are the fishes? How deep
right.
are the fish?
That's right. And how many of them?
And how many of them are dead? Look at that. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, I know we're running out of time here, but Gary, if you had to start all over again, where would you go? Would you still be an inventor? Would you be more a businessman? Would you be more of an educator, a writer, a photographer? Which or big brother? What would you spend more of your time in doing?
Oh wow. Big Brother, definitely, because you have the kind of impact that you have. But if I were starting over now, there's no money in being a photographer anymore. If you're an engineer, the world needs more engineers, but everything that you know that makes you valuable to the company will be obsolete in like 8 years. So you
Mm.
want to invest, you want to learn about something that has timeless application. And again, that's going to the business world. But I would
Mhm.
probably emphasize my time. Um, hmm, do you know what a script kiddie is?
I don't believe in scripts, but keep going. I'm listening. I bet you people are hanging on out on your words because
Well,
of the.
don't do that because what I'm about to say is not really serious. But if you break into someone's bank account, like their PayPal account, steal money,
Yeah.
um, unless you steal more than $1 million, nobody's going to come after you. So that's just go and break into websites and funnel off some money if you can, and make sure it's small amounts, and you can do these things with impunity.
Okay, okay, okay. That's not the one I was expecting, but that will get a lot of people into trouble. So
You want to
I will get a lot of people into trouble. And I don't want that to be attributed to the Story Warrior channel. I don't want that to be attributed to Mr. Friedman, who has done so much incredible work in the world. But can you tell me? You mentioned that you and DRR did some work in respect to insurance.
yes.
Okay,
Okay,
tell us about that because I'm very interested in insurance because I've seen the lack of insurance decimate, destroy families. And I know insurance can be very, very powerful in helping families to protect families during the worst possible moments. Tell us about that.
okay. So we were not an insurance company. What we were was an intermediary between insurance underwriters and insurance carriers. Uh,
Mm,
so back in those days, when you were an insurance underwriter, you would do all your communication by fax. Remember
mm.
fax? You know.
Yep, I
So,
do. I do.
so the idea was the people looking for risks would be able to go to a marketplace where the people who had risks for sale would be
Mm,
able to find each other. Let's say you're an
mm,
insurance agent. I have an unusual customer.
mhm.
Insurance underwriters are looking for risks to cover, and they really understand probability. They understand statistics. They understand what kind of a risk they have an appetite for. So it
Mm.
allows the insurers and the underwriters to meet each other. You
Wow.
can think of it as eBay for insurance.
Yeah,
Not
marketplace. Okay.
find each other, but they could also communicate electronically, which is a new idea back then. And
Wow.
you can have a complete track record, complete a written history of their communication.
Yes.
And it was really forward thinking. Now, remember when I told you earlier that if you have to point out that there's a problem before you tell people what the solution is, you've lost the game?
Yes.
Sure Trade, that company was in that category
Oh my
because we
God.
identified the problem, we came up with a brilliant solution for it, but nobody in the insurance companies
Have been thinking
understood
about
that there was a problem. What's wrong with doing facts? I've been doing it for 30 years. We don't need you.
it. And later on, I think they use something called MIB, Medical Information Bureau, which is another version of that, although it focuses mostly on medical information. Isn't that so? So you get to see who is insurable, who has higher risk based on the information they've collected from all the hospitals, all the communities of health practice. They put all of that there. So you are definitely ahead of your time.
Again, if you're ahead of your time, you can never profit from it. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about what has been your most profitable invention or creation or idea or something that you've put into the marketplace. What are some of the most profitable ones that people can learn from?
The one that really springs to mind is the one I talked about earlier, the digital camera.
Mhm.
Um, the idea died. All right. Okay, I'll tell you more of a story about that. I got a patent because I work for NASA. All of your ideas belong to them, but they have an army of lawyers to go out and get patents. And
Yes.
in the 1990s, I got a patent on this idea.
Yeah.
Patents only last about 15 years.
Hmm.
And there was a great interest in this patent from Polaroid, who flew out a whole bunch of executives to Pasadena just to hear me talk about this subject, because they were looking for a solution to this problem for
Wow.
a decade. And I had cracked that nut, and Polaroid went out of business by the time they could do something about it.
Yeah.
So what happened? I started the company. I went back to NASA. Hey, I'd like to license this so I can commercialize it. And they said, no, you're too small. Oh, well. Then Nikon stole the idea. Then Canon stole the idea. But because I only have a US patent and they are Japanese companies, they couldn't do anything about it. And
Oh my
because I
God.
was not on the project lead, because I was not the one in charge of its development, they didn't implement it correctly. And a bunch of Russian hacking teams were able to make both of their solutions useless. They were both compromised, and that was that. So that was like 20 years ago. Now there is a new consortium being put together, starting with Adobe, and all these other big imaging companies have signed on. Nikon, Canon, Sony, as I mentioned, Adobe, a few others, Epson. And they all have addressed this problem where you can't really believe what you see anymore. So Adobe's standard, which borrows heavily from the work I did, whose
Mhm.
patent has now expired, will let you go and see the edit history of whatever digital artifact you present.
Mm.
So they will, yes, it was taken on this date. Yes, it was adjusted the curves in Photoshop. Yes, you did this to it. Yes, if you hadn't done anything to it, your paper trail will be able to show it.
Mm.
So other people have finally realized that there's a problem, and now it's being put together, in my opinion, responsibly by a consortium, and it is being implemented. No, I'm not profiting from it, but
Hmm. Oh my
Maybe,
God.
maybe something I did led to that consortium. I don't know what effect I had. All I know is of all the inventions I had, that one has got a little bit of traction now.
Wow. Was it even one that you thought would be the most that would get the most traction, or is it one? There you
You
go,
never know.
which points out to another issue, which is you never know which idea is gonna catch on.
That's
So for
right.
those that are listening, I'm thinking you're saying do as much good as you can because you don't know which one is gonna catch on. You
Do as
do
much
your
as you
best.
can, and don't expect any rewards.
Don't
Do it
expect anyone.
because, do it because the world needs it, and then let go of the outcome. That's the most important lesson you can learn. Do
Wow.
what you can, let go of the outcome. Otherwise, you're going to be stressing about it, and that's not a proper use of consciousness.
And that will be a very painful one if you're thinking only on return on investment, return on investment, return on investment, and you don't get it coming. You'll be such a frustrated person. So to wrap this up, I am so grateful. You have been a phenomenal Renaissance man. You've cracked the code on so many things that few people can even wrap their minds around. And you still continue to smile, you still continue to do good work. And if you had some advice for those who have tried and failed a few times, what would that be?
Keep
Let's
doing it. Keep
keep doing,
going,
keep
because
doing
you
it.
never know what's going to catch on. Just make sure you can live.
Make
don't,
sure.
don't, don't mortgage a family house. Make sure you have a safety net, but just keep trying because you just never know.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Gary. This has been a special moment for me to learn from someone like you who has been around the block, who has done it all, and who continues to exude so much humility and not take yourself too seriously. But more importantly, you had a ton of advice for those who are in the trenches. They want to make something of themselves. So thank you so much for coming to the Story Warrior channel. And yes, indeed, you brought in the goods. You told us the story of why you are an unsung hero with an untold story that we need to continue to tell the world to look out for those fascinating inventions that you have put into the world so that we can learn from you and let the world give the credit where it's due. Because without credit, we have lost our own existence. Give credit where it's due. If somebody has done something, give them credit. And I give credit to Mr. D.R. Lawson for allowing us to get together and give credit to you for all the work you've done. Thank you so much for the good you've put into the world, sir.
Thank you, Gideon. I sure appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. And I hope we wrap up here and we connect again offline to talk about other things that can help someone. Thank you, sir.
Okay.